Imagine for a moment that your body is not a static sculpture, but a living, breathing river, constantly reshaping its banks through the quiet whispers of cellular communication. We often look at the soft curve of an arm and see a failure of discipline or the simple accumulation of excess, but biology tells a far more nuanced and elegant story. What if I told you that what we perceive as stubborn weight is, more often than not, a structural narrative about the integrity of your connective tissues and the vitality of your internal circulation? We have been taught to fight our bodies as if they were enemies to be conquered, yet the secret to transformation lies in understanding the delicate architecture beneath the skin, the way our collagen scaffolding breathes, and how our lymphatic system clears the debris of existence. When we turn our gaze toward the structural reality of the human form, we must first dismantle the modern obsession with adipose tissue as the sole architect of our silhouette. To truly understand the softening of the arms, we must venture beneath the surface and into the intricate world of the extracellular matrix, the invisible scaffolding that dictates whether our tissues stand firm or succumb to the pull of gravity. This is the architecture of integrity. It is a vast, interconnected web of collagen fibers, elastin, and hydrating proteins that act as the internal mortar of our biological house. When we perceive a sag in the limb, we are rarely looking at a simple deposit of energy. We are witnessing a structural fatigue within this microscopic landscape. Imagine a suspension bridge where the cables have begun to fray or lose their tension. No amount of painting the surface will restore the bridge's lift. In the same way, the integrity of our skin and muscle attachment depends entirely on the health of these biological cables. Scientifically, this integrity is governed by the fibroblasts, specialized cells that act like diligent craftsmen, constantly weaving new strands of collagen to replace the old. However, as we navigate the stresses of the modern environment, these craftsmen can become sluggish or under-resourced. The degradation of the extracellular matrix is often accelerated by oxidative stress and glycation, a process where excess sugars cross-link with proteins, making them brittle and prone to snapping. This isn't merely a cosmetic transition, it is a profound shift in the body's structural physics. When these fibers lose their elasticity, the skin loses its memory, its ability to snap back against the muscle beneath it. We have been conditioned to believe that the answer is to burn away the softness, but you cannot burn your way towards structural resilience. You must instead provide the biological instructions and the raw materials, the amino acids, the vitamin C catalysts, and the mechanical tension that signal the fibroblasts to resume their work. Reflect on the fact that your body is in a constant state of turnover. The arm you have today is not the same arm you had a year ago. It is a collection of cells that have been replaced and remodeled. If we change the internal environment, we change the quality of the construction. By focusing on the architecture of integrity, we move away from the reductive logic of calories in versus calories out and toward a more sophisticated understanding of tissue quality. It is about fostering an environment where the scaffolding is robust, where the collagen is supple, and where the connection between skin and muscle is tight and vibrant. This is a journey of restoration, a scientific commitment to maintaining the very framework that supports our physical presence in the world, ensuring that our outer form reflects the inner vitality and strength of a well-maintained biological system. To understand the true nature of the body's contours, we must move our attention from the solid to the fluid, acknowledging that we are essentially walking vessels of water. Beneath the skin of the arm lies a vast, silent network, known as the lymphatic system, a secondary circulatory river that acts as the body's internal filtration and drainage plant. While we often misidentify the heaviness, or sag, in our limbs as a permanent accumulation of fat, it is frequently a manifestation of stagnant fluid, a biological backup in a system that lacks its own central pump. Unlike the heart, which forcefully drives blood through our arteries, the lymphatic river relies entirely on the rhythmic contraction of our muscles and the pressure of our movements to push waste and interstitial fluid back toward the center of the body. When our lifestyle becomes sedentary or our internal chemistry becomes inflamed, this river turns into a swamp. The tissues become waterlogged, heavy, and distended, pulling the skin downward and creating a soft, doughy texture that resists traditional weight loss efforts because the issue isn't caloric, it is hydraulic. This fluid retention is a profound indicator of how our microcirculation is performing at a cellular level. When the tiny vessels that nourish our skin and fascia become leaky or inefficient, fluid escapes into the spaces between cells, causing a subtle but pervasive swelling known as lymphedema in its extreme forms, but appearing as general laxity in its milder stages. This fluid weight distorts the natural lines of the triceps and upper arm, masking the muscle definition that lies perfectly intact beneath the surface. From a scientific perspective, this is a failure of the body's housekeeping. The lymphatic system is responsible for clearing out cellular debris, metabolic byproducts, and large protein molecules that are too bulky for the veins to handle. When these elements sit idle in the tissues, they trigger a low-grade inflammatory response that further weakens the collagen scaffolding we previously discussed. It is a feedback loop. The fluid creates weight, the weight stretches the tissue, and the stretched tissue becomes even less efficient at moving the fluid. To address this, we must adopt the mindset of a hydrologist rather than a sculptor. We are looking to restore the flow of a river that has been dammed by inactivity or poor systemic health. Every intentional reach, every pulse of the muscle, and even the deep, rhythmic expansion of our lungs acts as a mechanical bellows, pulling that stagnant fluid out of the extremities and back into the vital circulation. This perspective shifts our relationship with our bodies from one of frustration to one of stewardship. We begin to see that the sagginess we see in the mirror might actually be the body's silent plea for movement, a signal that the internal waters need to be stirred. By optimizing our hydration, supporting our vascular health with bioactive nutrients, and engaging in the specific types of mechanical tension that stimulate lymphatic drainage, we aren't just chasing an aesthetic goal. We are restoring the functional rhythm of our biological tides. We are clearing the path for the body to reclaim its natural buoyancy, allowing the skin to sit closer to the frame as the hidden heaviness of stagnant water finally begins to recede. The conversation regarding the body's physical form often stops at the visible, yet the most profound transformations occur through a silent chemical dialogue known as the myokine connection. For decades, we viewed muscle simply as a mechanical engine, a series of pulleys and levers designed for locomotion. But modern science has unveiled a more poetic reality. Our muscles are actually the body's largest endocrine organ. When we contract our muscles, particularly through the rhythmic, intentional resistance required to tone the arms, we are not just burning fuel, we are manufacturing medicine. These medicine molecules, called myokines, are signaling proteins released by contracting muscle fibers that enter the bloodstream and travel throughout the entire body, acting as a biological fountain of youth for the surrounding tissues. When we engage in specific movements, we are essentially sending a high-speed telegram to the skin and the underlying fascia, instructing them to tighten, repair, and rejuvenate. This is the hidden bridge between movement and elasticity. One specific myokine, known as IL-15, has been shown to play a critical role in skin health by communicating directly with the mitochondria within our skin cells. This crosstalk encourages the skin to maintain its thickness and structural resilience, preventing the thinning and papery texture that we often mistake for simple fat accumulation. In this light, the act of lifting a weight or performing a controlled push-up becomes a form of molecular skincare that works from the deep interior outward. We are moving away from the primitive idea of toning and toward the sophisticated concept of metabolic signaling. When the muscles of the arm are engaged, they create a localized field of chemical activity that tells the body this area is active, vital, and in need of structural reinforcement. The beauty of this system lies in its responsiveness. Every time you create mechanical tension in the triceps or biceps, you are triggering a cascade of these myokines that help to reduce systemic inflammation and stimulate the production of new, healthy tissue. This process is deeply philosophical in its nature, as it proves that our physical state is a direct reflection of our activity. The body does not maintain what it does not use. If the muscles remain silent, the chemical signals for firmness and lift are never sent, and the body, in its infinite efficiency, allows the surrounding architecture to soften. By understanding the myokine connection, we see that the remedy for sagging is not a passive one. It is a proactive engagement with our own biological software. We are not merely trying to change the shape of our limbs through brute force. We are whispering to our cells, inviting them to participate in a more vibrant and resilient version of ourselves. This internal communication network reminds us that every movement is a choice to renew the bond between our strength and our skin, ensuring that our outer envelope remains a taut and faithful reflection of the vitality within. The concept of sagging is often viewed through the lens of gravity, yet its true biological antagonist is a lack of perfusion, the vital delivery of life-sustaining blood through the process of angiogenesis. To understand why the underside of the arm loses its vitality, we must look at the microscopic vascular highways that nourish our skin and connective tissues. Our bodies possess an incredible, innate ability to grow new blood vessels, a process called angiogenesis, which ensures that every millimeter of our anatomy is bathed in oxygen and the raw nutrients required for cellular repair. When the tissue in the arms begins to sag, we are often observing a desertification of the biological landscape. Without adequate blood flow, the fibroblasts that produce collagen and the elastic fibers that give skin its snap are essentially starved. They go into a dormant state, unable to maintain the structural integrity of the limb. This is why the skin can begin to feel thin, cold, and disconnected from the muscle beneath. The plumbing of the body has become restricted, and the irrigation of the tissue has failed. Angiogenesis is not just a passive survival mechanism, it is a dynamic response to the environment we create within ourselves. When we stimulate the body through specific thermal changes, such as cold or heat, or through the mechanical demand of exercise, we are issuing a demand for more infrastructure. The body responds by sprouting new capillaries, weaving a dense net of microcirculation that acts like a supportive cushion for the skin. This increased vascularity does more than just feed the cells. It creates a pressurized environment that contributes to the plumpness and firmness of the tissue. Think of a garden hose. When the water is off, the hose is limp and flat, but when the pressure is high, it becomes rigid and strong. Our skin and fascia operate on a similar principle of hydrostatic pressure. By fostering healthy angiogenesis through bioactive foods, like those rich in polyphenols that support the lining of our blood vessels, and through movement that demands oxygen, we are essentially re-inflating the tissues of the arm from the inside out. This scientific reality invites a shift in how we perceive the flabbiness we often fight. It is not an enemy to be starved, but a territory to be reclaimed through nourishment and circulation. We must ask ourselves if we are providing the metabolic signals that encourage the body to invest in its own infrastructure. When we eat foods that protect our vascular health, such as dark leafy greens, berries, or omega-3 fatty acids, we are providing the bricks and mortar for these new highways of health. We are moving toward a philosophy of pro-aging where we recognize that the quality of our skin is a reflection of our internal irrigation. By prioritizing blood flow and the growth of new vessels, we ensure that the arm is not just a passive weight hanging from the shoulder, but a vibrant, well-fed, and resilient extension of a thriving cardiovascular system. This internal renewal is the secret to a lift that no external cream can provide, as it relies on the body's own miraculous ability to heal and reinforce itself through the simple, profound act of circulation. The final transformation of our physical form lies in the profound realization that we are not merely what we eat, but what we signal. Every forkful of food is a packet of biological information, a set of instructions that tells our cells whether to build, repair, or stagnate. When we look at the softening of the arms, we must recognize that this is often the result of a software error in our nutrition, a lack of the specific bioactive signals required to maintain the structural tension of our tissues. We have been taught to view food through the primitive lens of calories, as if the body were a simple furnace, but the body is actually a sophisticated laboratory. By selecting foods that contain specific health defense activators, we can essentially send a command to our DNA to ramp up the production of collagen and improve the elasticity of the skin. This is the nutritive signal, a scientific approach to firming the body that begins at the molecular level far below the reach of any topical treatment. Specifically, we look to the power of plant-based bioactives like proanthocyanidins found in berries and certain nuts, or the sulforaphane in cruciferous vegetables, which act as catalysts for our internal renewal systems. These compounds do not just provide fuel, they activate the NRF2 pathway, a master switch for antioxidant protection that shields our collagen fibers from the corrosive effects of environmental toxins and internal metabolic waste. When we consume these nutrients, we are essentially fortifying the glue that keeps our skin attached to the muscle. Furthermore, the inclusion of specific proteins and vitamin C is non-negotiable for the cross-linking of collagen fibers. Without the right chemical signals, the body cannot weave the tight, resilient mesh needed to counteract sagging. We are looking for a symphony of nutrients that work in concert to suppress the enzymes, the matrix metalloproteinases that act like microscopic scissors, cutting away at our structural integrity as we age. This perspective shifts our relationship with nutrition from one of restriction to one of empowerment. We are no longer eating to shrink, but eating to strengthen and lift. We are providing the building blocks for the architecture we wish to inhabit. It is a deeply reflective process to realize that the vibrancy of our limbs is tied to the vibrancy of our plates. By choosing foods that support our 5 health defense systems, angiogenesis, regeneration, the microbiome, DNA protection, and immunity, we are creating a systemic environment where sagging becomes a biological impossibility. The body responds to the quality of the messages it receives. If we provide the signals of abundance, repair, and vitality, the tissues of the arm will reflect that internal order. We are engaging in a form of biological architecture, using the intelligence of nature to reinforce the foundations of our own health, ensuring that every cell is equipped with the resources it needs to hold its ground against the passage of time.